Hello everyone, this is Elsie, coming up with you today on this beautiful sunny day. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever part of the world you are now. Welcome back to my channel. Today on this video, we're gonna check out on this, why Israel loves the Philippines. And this is gonna be an exciting one for me, because I've been doing reaction to singer artists most of the time. And now, let's try this one. Historian's account on why Israel loves the Philippines. So, with that being said, dive in. Let's go.
Israel and the Philippines have a very special relationship, and people don't really talk about it much. You see, the Philippines, despite being a world apart, separated by geography and culture, has a historical and wonderful relationship. Their relationship is deep and meaningful, and comes out to be amongst the most unexpected there is. And the type of international friendship that we talk about isn't merely about trade, security, or investments. They are built on something far more different. It's rooted in a shared history of struggle and survival. Moments when one reached out to the other in times of desperate need. To start off, this relationship went back to the 1930s. This was a dark time in world history, especially in Europe. Anti-Semitism was at its peak, and Jews were being persecuted. Countries around the world were shutting their doors on these desperate people. But it should also be known that Jews themselves were being expelled from all across the world. At the start of the 20th century, some Jews were deported by Ottoman authorities during the First World War. In 1933, the Nazi Germany persecution started with Nazi boycotts of Jewish businessmen. And then, as history knows what happens next. By 1940, the so-called June deportation carried out by the Soviet Union in June and July 1940 as the fourth and fifth waves of mass deportations of Polish citizens from Soviet-occupied Eastern Poland also targeted some 65,000 Polish Jews who fled from the German-occupied part of Poland. Left and right, they were being kicked out. But the cusp of today's story does not belong to these expulsions, but rather what happened halfway across the globe. In the Philippine Islands, something different was happening. President Manuel L. Quezon, who was in power at the time, made an extraordinary decision that was far ahead of its time. Despite facing opposition, he implemented a policy that would allow Jewish refugees to find sanctuary in the Philippines. He didn't just provide them refuge, he offered them a new lease on life. These were people escaping from the darkest times, and here was a country, itself under American colonial rule, reaching out a helping hand. And this was by no means an easy decision. The opposition he faced was harsh. His enemies criticized him for letting communist Jews in, and even his political allies scolded him for it. Yet for some reason, President Manuel Quezon had sympathized with the Jews. Being a Catholic, which was also the biggest religion in the Philippines, had pushed him a year later to fight for the entry of 10,000 Jews from Germany and Austria in the Philippines. His rivals used this idea to their advantage by calling Jews communists and claiming they wanted to control the world. They also said it would be difficult for the Philippines to manage the logistics. Further, some opponents had also distorted the issue, accusing President Quezon of not providing land to farmers while offering land to Jewish refugees in the Philippines. But surprisingly, against all odds, President Quezon went ahead and provided visas to 10,000 German and Austrian Jews. Out of that number, however, only 1,200 made it to the Philippines. Some analysts pointed out the fact that the Philippines was later invaded by the Japanese. And truth be told, there wasn't really any economic gains or political favors in the fray. He did it because he believed it was the right thing to do. Even though the Philippines was not yet a fully independent nation, Quezon used what power he had to make a moral stand. This decision didn't just save lives, it laid the first stone in the foundation of a friendship that has lasted to this day. This early act of humanitarian aid was a defining moment in the relationship between the Philippines and Israel, or more accurately, between Filipinos and Jews. It showed that even when faced with great risks, the Philippines was willing to do what was right. This set the tone for a friendship that would later extend into more significant actions, actions that would further solidify the bond between the two nations. But you might get carried out by the fact that this was the only defining moment of their relationship. No, history carried on as the Philippines became a big friend of Israel. In 1947, after the Second World War, a big vote came out from the United Nations. The world at that time was looking at the question of Palestine, a territory that had been under British control. The proposed plan was to partition Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states. This proposal, known as the United Nations Partition Plan for Palestine or Resolution 181, was a, let's say, contentious issue. The stage was set and the stakes were high. If the resolution passed, it would lead to the establishment of the State of Israel. However, getting enough countries to say yes was a monumental task. But that day would come. Out of the 58 UN members at that time, 33 voted in favor, 13 were against, and 10 abstained. But what came out to be the most surprising is that the Philippines voted in favor of establishing the State of Israel. The Philippines was also the only Asian country to ever vote in favor. Okay, so you might then ask, why is this such a big deal? Well, because that vote was a close call. If the Philippines had voted differently, the majority needed for the resolution to pass would not have been reached. Or, to put it simply, the Philippines vote was the tipping point. Israel might not have been established if not for that crucial yes from the Philippines. So, in a very real sense, the future of an entire nation rested on the shoulders of this single vote. President Quezon's earlier actions, and then later by the Philippines, proved yet again a monumental feat to their friendship. But like Quezon's actions, these were also not a political strategy. The decision was grounded in the country's own recent history of fighting for independence and self-determination. It was an alignment of values, a gesture of goodwill, a continuation of the humanitarian spirit. Carlos P. Romulo, who was the Philippines representative in the United Nations, spoke eloquently about the moral duty to support the Jewish people's aspiration for a homeland, echoing the sentiments of President Quezon's earlier actions. The impact of this vote reached far beyond diplomatic halls. It established the Philippines as a supporter of Israel's right to exist and self-govern, further strengthening the friendship between the two nations. It was an act that showcased the Philippines' willingness to support what it viewed as just and right, even when it stood alone among its Asian neighbors. In later years, the Philippines received military training and equipment from Israel. Israel has a highly advanced military and intelligence apparatus, and sharing this expertise was another layer in their expanding friendship. This was more than a simple transaction. It was a sign of deep trust and mutual respect. Today, it is well known that the Philippines employs a wide variety of Israeli-made equipment, from the Acero-class patrol gunboats to the Sabra light tank, Elbit Hermes 450, an unmanned aerial vehicle, and even a wide array of communication equipment. And aside from military ties, Israel and the Philippines are today exchanging trade, investment, and tourism to this very day. Although it is quite small, as in 2019, it was just about $254 million worth of trade. Tourism, on the other hand, saw around 30,000 Filipino tourists visiting Israel each year prior to the pandemic. And finally, there is also a small Filipino diaspora in Israel. Approximately 30,000 Filipinos reside in Israel, mostly as caregivers. The treatment of these migrant workers is generally better in Israel compared to other countries, thanks to labor agreements and cultural understanding. But anyway, do let us know what you think. Thanks for watching.
Wow.
I don't know.
Wow, this is very interesting. Very informative, you know. I got overwhelmed, honest. And at my age, this is the first time I heard about this historical information, and it's incredible, so fascinating, inspiring, you know. Yeah, and wow, thanks for sharing this one, because it's nice to know. This is indeed a part of history that all Filipino must know and be proud of. And you know what? I got so touched and so moved with that part of history. Yeah, when our then past president Manuel L. Quezon opened its doors to the Jewish refugees in 1930. Yeah, what an act of humanity. He is a hero, right? He's brave. that in spite of the fact that he was faced with a massive oppositions, still he chose to do the right thing by reaching out a helping hand to the Jewish people who at that time desperately needs a helping hand. Yeah, you can just imagine the feeling of the Jewish people that time. Being deported, being persecuted, and being kicked out with nowhere to go because all the countries shut down their doors to them. Yeah, it's actually heartbreaking, you know. And it's nice to know that the Philippines at that time reached out for a helping hand for the Jewish people. And that's something to be proud of, you know. And so that's one for sure why Israel loves the Philippines. Good to know again. Thanks for sharing. Another thing is that it's another big thing for Israel when out of 33 countries who voted in favor of the establishment of the State of Israel, the only Asian country that voted yes is the Philippines. So that's another remarkable thing, because that single vote made a big impact on the approval of that said resolution. So for sure again, that's another reason why Israel loves the Philippines. Yeah, and it's nice to know that up to this current year, Israel and the Philippines continues to be an ally. So that's it, guys. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you do, please do subscribe to my channel and press that notification bell so that every time that I do upload a new video, you will always be notified. Thank you for watching, and see you soon on my next video.